would like to thank you again, Mr. Maras and Mr. Gambardella. I would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for putting this wonderful opportunity for me to address this very high-level gathering. I am very much grateful to Italy's contribution to the work of the Union. Italy is one of the founding members of ITU, and one of the founding members back in 1865. In 2 years' time, we'll be celebrating 150 years of the existence of the Union. And about 4 years ago, our organization, 4 or 5 years ago, our organization was quoted as one of the most enduring companies in the world because it was able to adapt itself to the changing environment over the 150 years of its existence, and it still continue to be a valuable tool for its members. It is a great pleasure to be here in Rome for this workshop entitled Beyond Dubai, a new global agenda for the Internet. ETNO has been a very strong partner of us, of ours during the past decade of its existence, and we are very proud of the association. I think the European industry has played a key role in that, and I would like to really recognize that ITU is the oldest organization of the UN, but only one with such a broad membership of over 193 member states and over 700 private companies and civil society companies that are also members of the Union at the same level as governments. And therefore, we are very proud of the multi-stakeholder format that has been in this Union over 100 years now. As you know, ITU's mission is to connect the world and to bring the benefit of ICT to all the world's people, wherever they live and whatever their circumstances. This we do together with the 193 member states. We do it together with the 700 sector members drawn from industry, academia, and civil society organizations. And I'm very pleased that there are many academia and civil society organizations here in this room. This is really a real partnership, a success story. I firmly believe that if we can succeed in achieving our mission, then we will see unprecedented social and economic improvement for all, and that we will continue to make bold steps in accelerating progress toward meeting the Millennium Development Goals, and indeed other sustainable development goals as we move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made the most extraordinary progress in the first 12 years of the new millennium. In the year 2000, around half of the people of the world, richest countries, had a mobile phone. Mobile penetration in regions like Africa was under 2%. Today, there are some 6.4 billion people that have a mobile subscription, and mobile penetration in Africa is 60%. At the beginning of the millennium, around 280 million people use the internet worldwide, 280 million only. In not just less than a decade, this figure has grown almost tenfold to reach 1/3 of the human population. 2.5 billion people are connected. Of course, this has been a success story, but still means that we still have a long way to go. There are still 1 billion people not connected to the mobile phones. There are still 4.5 billion people not connected to internet, and most of them are in developing countries. And among the 2.5 billion people connected to internet, more than 80% are connecting through mobile devices. And yet, I'm seeing in the discussions here, I've seen in discussion in Dubai, unfortunately, that there were trying to oppose the telecommunication world and the internet world, as if we have to make a choice between a phone and the internet access. As a consumer, I don't need to make such a choice. I need both, and they're working together. There is no reason whatsoever to oppose these two societies, as if you are opposing roads and cars. They need to work together. If you buy a road, if you build a road, you don't necessarily own all the cars that are running on them. And if you buy a car, you don't buy a road. Those are simple analogies that we have done over the time. And these two societies need to work together. I cannot understand why the international community becomes polarized in having to make a choice between two things that work together, that needs to continue to work together, that have worked together successfully. If you want to have internet access in a new house or a new building or a new office space, the service provider will ask you if you have a full phone line and will give you internet over it. If you don't have a phone line, it will still provide you internet through another mean and will give you a phone line on top of it. Nothing wrong with that. We need to make an environment that will trigger more investment in the infrastructure. The challenge we are facing is that 2/3 are still not connected. When those 2/3 come into play, the traffic will not just be multiplied by 3. It will be multiplied by fold of 10 because it's exponential growth. You know, we are talking about sharing of information. Information is the only thing that has that particularity. When it's shared, it's multiplied. Anything else, when you share it, is divided. When you share information, it's not only multiplied by the number of people it's been shared, it multiplies more in that, because everyone will add some value to it. That's the value of the commodity we have here. And in a few years to come, bandwidth will be a commodity like gold or oil. It could be traded on a stock market. And we'll see that to come in the years to come. And therefore, people were asking why you want to to create a treaty. You need a treaty because you're sharing a commodity. As simple as that. Do you need a treaty? Because why you need a treaty? Because you don't want every single country to have to negotiate one by one with others. Some countries are strong enough to be able to negotiate with groups of countries. There is a trade agreement that is being put between Europe and the US. All European countries with one country. So the country is strong enough to negotiate that. How about other countries, developing countries? They need to be part of this, and they can all benefit. The advantage we have in the ICT world is that everyone can be a winner. It's not a win-lose situation. It's a win-win. And it works for everybody. And therefore, everyone can add some value to it. Therefore, we thought that by going for a treaty, and that was agreed by all our member states unanimously, when we decided to organize the conference in Dubai, it was a unanimous decision by all our members. No one single country said, no, don't do it. And we work by consensus in ITU. So we have the remaining 4.5 billion people still offline. So 2/3 of the world people are still locked out of the biggest and most valuable library. Almost 2/3 of the world people are still refused access to the biggest marketplace of the world. And almost 2/3 of the world's people are still denied the extraordinary opportunities that are available to the other third. Mobile broadband is clearly going to be a vital part of the solution, and we must continue to mobilize to ensure that all the world's people have affordable, equitable access to the internet. And that means finding the investment to continue rolling out the telecommunication infrastructure that makes access to the internet possible. Central to this is the crucial issue of spectrum. ITU's membership already made some bold decisions during the World Radio Conference last year in Geneva and laid the foundation to ensuring that the digital dividend is being used effectively for mobile broadband. That was a great success. Again, the type of tension that we've seen in Dubai in December is completely different from what we've seen in January. That is the same year, during the World Radio Conference. Complete unanimity on all of the issues. We're proud of the fact that there was even a resolution, a common resolution between Israel and Palestine during that conference. Not a voting. There was common resolution agreed. I negotiated in my office, and we read it on the floor to all members, and it was no subject to discussion, because we are dealing with technical issues, and all technical problems have technical solutions, and we can agree on those and find solutions that work for everybody. We're looking forward to WRC 15 in 2015, and that will give us opportunity to ensure that operators have what they need to deliver mobile broadband and to deliver on our responsibility to connect all the world's people. This is why ITU and UNESCO set up the Broadband Commission for Digital Development 3 years ago to advocate for increased broadband access and rollout, not just for its own sake, but to accelerate progress toward meeting the Millennium Development Goals. And when we are discussing in ITU issues such as internet, we're not talking about the content of internet. We're talking about the infrastructure that will let it carry, the infrastructure. And again, it's like buying a car. By building a road, it doesn't mean you're going to own all the cars or the content that they're transporting. No, we don't need to. And we've been working that way for years. The optical fiber cables that are built are standardized by ITU. The satellites are coordinated within ITU. Some of the standards that enable easier access to internet with current fibers or copper lines, like XDSL. The standard XDSL is made in ITU, IQT, Standardization Center. And those was never problems. And suddenly, some people want to oppose the two communities really unnecessarily. And really, I thought that the best way to win a war is to avoid it in the first place, and necessary. So we're appealing on all of the world's people to help us make the bridge between the two communities. We've been working together, and there's nothing wrong in continuing to do so in a successful manner for the benefit of the consumers that we are all trying to help. When I invited the Broadband Commission, the creation, I invited UNESCO to join us, it's because UNESCO is dealing with the content, its constituency is dealing with content in science, education, and culture. And my constituency, ITU constituency, is dealing with the infrastructure that will carry that. So we're complementary. We did the same thing with the Director General of World Health Organization, WHO, in creating the Commission on Accountability for Women and Children's Health. ITU constituency is dealing with the E part in the e-health, the infrastructure. And the WHO will be dealing with the content of it, which our constituency is not competent for. And it will never replace a medical doctor or a teacher, but will give them the tools to have more access to more people. So that's why we think that this organization must not be politicized in bringing it to the internet content issues, but it's complementary to what is being done And I believe that we need to make sure that everybody understands that. When we created the Broadband Commission, we invited about 60 commissioners, all leaders in their field, representing government, industry, academia, and international agencies, and they are doing great work in advocating the importance of policy leadership. Indeed, a number of our commissioners run some of the biggest and most influential companies in the mobile telecommunication world. And it is great to see that Giancarlo Innocenzi Botti, one of our commissioners, is also one of the panelists of the workshop today. Distinguished colleagues, I too firmly believe in the social and economic benefit of improved connectivity for all. And in this regard, I would like to celebrate some of the key achievements and highlight some of the new ITRs, which will, some of the things that is in the new ITR, which will have been agreed in December 2012 in Dubai. This is the document is available online in all six languages of ITU, and a copy has been distributed, I believe, for you. And I would like to take a little bit of time to go through it, because most of the people have been scared, made to believe that this is a very dangerous document. And I would like to see if you find anything that in there that doesn't go along with your needs here. This new treaty contains a number of important revised provisions that represent a major improvement over the 1988 text. So let me take a few minutes to go by article. In the preamble of the document, and by the way, it's only 9 pages, so it's really easy to read, 9 pages. An international treaty, if it's longer than that, it will be too much prescriptive, too much detailed, and it will be obsolete before even the ink dries. It has to be general and principle-based so that it lasts long enough. And this is why it is only 9 pages, 10 articles total. And the preamble was specifically stating the manner in which this treaty will respect human rights obligations. We put that specifically there. It was really no need to put that in such a treaty because that's already in our convention, in our constitution and convention. And we are a member of the United Nations family, and all the members of the ITU are members of the UN family, and they have adhered to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights already. So there was no need to put it in there. But since there were a lot of debate about whether this treaty will go against human rights, we found it necessary to put it right in the preamble, just to make it clear. In the Article 1 covers the scope of the ITRs, and I should draw your attention to 2 things there. Firstly, that the ITR text needed to be brought in line with the ITU Constitution and Convention, as these take precedent, and this is why changes were made to text concerning operating agencies. And secondly, that our membership was clear about the intent in the ITRs, that it should not be content related. And we specified that as well. Because when you're talking about internet, you could talk about content. And what we're talking about, if we do touch anything that is related to internet, it is the infrastructure to carry the internet, and therefore not the content. And we made it clear in Article 1 again, to be very clear. That's in Article 1.1. Article 2 covers definitions, which was updated to bring the ITR's definitions into alignment with the Convention and Constitution. As I said last time we had the ITRs was 1988, 24 years. There were many definitions that may have changed, or many new things that have come up since then, and we wanted to put something to be clear on that. The Article 3 covers several key issues such as quality of service, and that was revised to ensure the right to communicate at good technical quality. and that countries should coordinate how their infrastructure works to prevent the misuse of international telecommunication numbering resources. And that's something within the mandate of ITU. To encourage implementation of calling line identification information, and to promote the implementation of regional telecommunication traffic exchange points. Those are very relevant issues that come when you're building networks. These provisions should not only improve service quality, but also help to bring down the cost of services to consumers. Because indeed our ultimate goal is the consumer. How to make easy access, affordable access, and secure access to all citizens of this planet. That's our objective. And of course, more countries that accede to the new ITRs, the more countries that adhere to it, the greater the benefit for all. And this is especially true in areas such as quality of service, where service quality outside a globally agreed framework is as good as or bad as the weakest link. Why you wanted a treaty? Because if you needed countries to have individual agreements, 193 by 192, that gives you over 87,000 agreements to be signed worldwide. That's why you try to put a framework where people will adhere to, that's workable for everyone. And some people may say, oh no, we are in a new world now, we don't need a treaty. International treaties are necessary to put a framework in place. And especially when you talk about commodities, why people are doing trade talks still. We need them. And the reality is that there is big money behind this. There is a flow of money. And the current financial crisis in the world, we need to make sure that this industry continues to create jobs, give new services, and be a tool for other sectors to be more efficient. It's been so far the only industry that was not touched by the financial crisis. And why there was a crisis in the financial sector? Because of total lack of regulation. And why this sector has not gone through any crisis yet? Because there is some regulation. It should not be heavy-handed regulation. It should be light-touch regulation. Key principles that people will adhere to. And that's why this document is very thin, very lean and mean. It's not too prescriptive, but it's giving some guidelines that we can adhere into, and giving the opportunity to operators and service providers to talk to themselves and do the final negotiation within those guidelines that are global, that will attract more investment in the infrastructure. And this is why we put this thing. And I believe that it's important for countries like Italy to adhere to such principles that will help create jobs and gives opportunities to them, to their companies and citizens worldwide, and have the competitive edge that they've already had. It's one industry that is based on one natural resource, it's human brain. It will continue to grow because human brain has no limitation. It will always continue to innovate. There will always be progress. We're talking about internet today. There will be something else beyond the internet tomorrow. That's how the world is. Whenever, at every stage of science and technology advancement, we think we are at the best. Yes, we are today at the best, but tomorrow is better. That's the beauty about this world. Let me go back to the ITRs. The Article 4 covers international telecommunication services, which contain new provisions to improve transparency and accuracy in mobile roaming charges, as well as promoting competition in the provision of mobile roaming services. I mean, Europeans have solved this problem among themselves. European Commission has set some rules for roaming among European operators. But is it enough? I think something that goes beyond Europe will be better, because most of the European operators are operating somewhere else in the world. And people from the world will travel to Europe. So we need to make sure that there are good conditions for all of them in moving forward. So to help to ensure this a good roaming mechanism, what we had here in this Article 4 is more transparency of end user prices for international mobile services, satisfactory quality, greater cooperation and competition to avoid bill shock, and avoidance of mitigation of inadvertent roaming charges in border zones. And these are real issues and needs to be put in a treaty like this that give them the freedom to negotiate, while it's some key principles that they were all adhered to. And consumers will benefit because of the transparency in pricing. Prices will go down. Article 5 gives improved access to emergency services, which will translate into saving lives. When was the last time you were in a country where you didn't know which is the international, which was the local emergency service number? And it's a matter of minutes. Knowing that number will allow you to save a life. Unfortunately, I don't know the international, the code here, the emergency number here. I would have come to across some emergency situation, I would not be able to help. And you go to any country, it's different. So what this article is addressing is how to make sure that there is an international numbering system that will enable you to, that will be automatically converted to the local number, like we do for the international dialing code. The plus is a code made by ITU. Those you don't have to remember which is 000 or 011 or 009, depending on the countries. The machine will directly convert you into the number if you don't know it. That's the beauty of it. And we wanted to, that's something will save lives, lots of lives. And of course, it will address the issues of security and robustness of international telecommunication networks, and promote measures not based on content filtering that will help combat unsolicited bulk electronic communications. This is one part where people were afraid that we might enter into content issue because we're addressing spam. But the technical part of spam needs to be addressed, because each and every one of you in your countries do address it, spam anyway. And spam is a global phenomenon. In the current internet world, you pay for what you receive, whether you ask for it or not. So most of the developing countries, it may not be a problem in developed countries, but in most of the developing countries, they're receiving tons of spam. Sometimes up to 80% of the traffic is spam. And they're paying for it before even they open it. And they don't even open it, they delete it. Even if the service provider is filtering the spam for you, you're still paying for it. That's the situation. So addressing this issue, you don't need to look at the content side to address this issue. And therefore, there's the part that will, in fact, addressing service quality at the same time, because spam will degrade the quality. Article 6 covers charging and accounting, which help to encourage investment in international telecommunication networks and promote competitive wholesale pricing for traffic carried. This is one of the most important articles in the revised ITRs, and I am confident that it will play a very important role in furthering broadband rollout around the world. Article 7, which covers suspension of services, remains unchanged. Article 8, which covers the dissemination of information, includes new text to give member states more flexibility in managing this according to national needs and national rules. And if not, people well, adhering to it will put a reservation that anything in this will have to be according to binational rules anyway. And that's what happened. It also includes new Article 8A, which will help to improve energy efficiency and reduce e-waste. A new Article 8B, which will help bring the benefit of ICTs to the 650 million or so people who have some kind of disability. Who can go against that? We're addressing the issue of people with disability. The current devices we have been made for people without disability, and we're not taking them into account in building the systems and networks. We have elderlies, and with aging, we have other issues that are coming that needs to be taken into account, and this article addresses that. And I think this is a social phenomenon that we need to address. People with different types of disabilities are not at all taken into account. The only thing we did a long time ago, when on the keyboards, the little dot you have on the 5 enables a blind person to orient himself or herself on the keyboard of a phone. But with now touch screens, you don't have that ability anymore. So even that has disappeared. So there are other means that needs to be taken into account. And with many other new provisions, these articles demonstrate the clear emphasis that membership is now placing on human development and empowerment. And we should be proud to be part of the process which is actively working toward making the world a better place for all through digital inclusion, respect for the environment, and ongoing sustainability. In addressing e-waste and energy efficiency, I think we are addressing the issues of our time. Finally, Article 9 and 10 cover special arrangements and the entry into force of the treaty. So, and the Article 10 says specifically that this treaty is composed of the 10 articles and the 2 appendices, or 3 appendices that are attached to it, not the resolutions. And the only time you see the word internet in this treaty is when you are, is one resolution, which is not part of the treaty, and which is called fostering the development of internet, fostering. And we know well that broadband will, and that's addressing broadband. It's said in the title only. The rest of the text is addressing broadband because broadband will foster the development of internet. Some people are saying we shouldn't even use the word internet. When you're saying that internet is a multi-stakeholder issue, why you want to take out ITU or its members? We are part of the multi-stakeholder. We can contribute into it, in the debate, like anybody else. It shouldn't be a sin for using the word internet. Internet is using telecommunications. And there is no need to be seen as something, because you use the word internet, you want to take over the governance of internet. Why? There's no need for us. And in fact, to try and really dissipate all of the doubts, at the conference, not only I've asked the Secretary General of United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, to include those things in his speech, but I also invited the chairman and the CEO of ICANN to come and join us at the opening of the conference. Fadi Shihade, the CEO of ICANN, spoke at the opening of the conference, just to show that there is a synergy between these two organizations. Of course, ICANN is one player in the internet ecosystem. We don't need to take over their job. They don't need to take over ours. They are complementary. And I need not to change the mission of the Union. The mission of the Union was cut out for the 4 years from 2010 to 14 was already cut out at the World Plenipotentiary Conference, where I was re-elected in Guadalajara, in Mexico. And that 4-year plan gave us exactly what I'm supposed to do in spectrum management, in satellite orbital locations, coordination, in standardization of telecommunication services and development issues, with agreement of all member states. We cannot add new text to it or new assignments, and we would not have a funding for doing it. And we don't have the expertise for so. We are complementary. What we are doing is really complementary. And I cannot understand why in Europe, where this thing will help create more jobs, that they will be seeing it as a necessary framework. And I hope that Italy will look at the interests of its industry and the creation of job creation that are related to this here in Italy and adhere to this text. There are operators like the group of Ethno that have been very clear in explaining what are the benefits that they are looking for in this, and they have taken part of the negotiations of this text in a very fair and transparent manner. The Deutsche Telecoms, the Telecom Italias, and others will be the winners because they will be able to work in a flexible manner at the international arena. I believe that the acceptance of this process is important for all of us, and I hope that we will continue to work together and have but let me also come back to some little additional things that are in this thing. We have a resolution on special measures for landlocked developing countries and small island developing states for access to international optical fiber networks, which will help bring services to some of the most underserved people on the planet. We have a resolution on the use of globally harmonized national numbers for access to emergency services, which will help save lives. And we have a resolution fostering the enabling environment for greater growth of the internet. And I really regret that this has been a subject of very sensitive discussions unnecessarily. To conclude that, let me reiterate my conviction that thanks to Wiki 12, a healthy digital ecosystem where everyone on the planet can participate is now within our grasp. All stakeholders, including government and businesses, must do their utmost to ensure that we deliver on this promise. And as an institution, ITU has successfully been an influential and neutral global convener throughout its long history, and we are firm believers that only open, transparent, and inclusive process will lead to the way to successful policy making. Time is short, so I will try to stop here, but I just want to say that we will continue to act as a bridge builder, and I invite you all to help us build that bridge between the two communities which are dear to you all. You need the telecommunication community, you need the internet community. You only need them when they are both working together. One cannot do without the other. And there's no need for unnecessary wasting of time in getting those two one against the other. Really, we are firmly believing in this. I've been very much frank about this, and I've been openly discussing this everywhere. And so far, in the 6 years I've been Secretary General of ITU, I don't think I challenge anyone to show me if I have done something contrary to what I have said, or said something that I didn't do. We're very transparent in this, and in fact, I cannot do something that will not be decided unanimously by our members. We don't vote on issues. We are very proud of that. That voting is not part of our culture. Of course, some people brought us to vote on an issue last time in Dubai, which I wanted to avoid. When there was one country stated that we needed to vote on the issue, first thing I did was to ask the floor. Of course, I was stopped. I said no, since this person has asked this process, you cannot stop it anymore. It was probably the only thing that I regret in my 6 years as Secretary General of ITU, that I could not stop this voting. And the voting was about what? Was about the right of developing countries to access telecommunications, networks, and infrastructure. And I thought, how come ITU membership will be fighting over this? In which world are we coming in now? Are we losing our soul? Developing countries have the right to access. That's not something that will be divisive. That's something we will all understand. But I can understand with the current financial crisis, people may lose their soul. We have been the organization where there was no East-West fight. There was no North-South fight. We are 150 years old. It means that we survived the 2 world wars. Warring factions were still working in ITU. If communication lines were not open, you wouldn't be able to declare war by phone, or you wouldn't be able to certainly make peace. We survived the 8 years or so of Cold War. The Soviet Union and the West were working together. If they were not working together inside the ITU, there would be no satellite co-located. There will be no spectrum. There will be spectrum jam everywhere. We have that tradition of cooperation. And let's keep it. It's a beautiful thing. And it's going to help the world to be a better place. And we can still be complementary to other societies. And we cannot do it all. This is why when in 1998, ITU organized the World Summit on Information Society, and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy was very active in the WSIS process. We very much thank you for the cooperation. The WSIS was due to the fact that we were saying back in 1998 that 2 years before the 2000 deadline, which was set by the Maitland Commission 20 years earlier, back in 1980, there was a Maitland Commission report called the Missing Link. People who are my age here probably remember the Missing Link report. But there are many young people in this room who may not remember that. The Missing Link report was commissioned by ITU because we're saying we need to make sure that every citizen of this planet is connected in 20 years' time. And the objective at that time was very ambitious. I will tell you what it was. It was saying that every citizen should be within 5 kilometers walking distance to a phone booth. And that was seen at that time very ambitious. How can you can do that? And indeed, it was too ambitious because 2 years before, in '98, we knew we were not there. We failed. And the conclusion was, why we failed? Because we were trying to do this alone. And we decided to organize a World Summit on Information Society open to all stakeholders. For the first time, UN was organizing a summit where there was no demonstrations outside because the stakeholders could come inside and express themselves. So we've been back in '98. Nobody was talking about multi-stakeholderism at the time. And that's why the WSIS were organized in 2 phases, in Geneva in 2003 and Tunis in 2005. It was the most open conference ever of the United Nations. And it was successful. And it placed us in the information society. I believe that we can safely say now we are now in the information society, but we have a next goal now, knowledge society, where everyone has access to information. And accessing is not enough. You have to be able to use information. And then to create information, and then share information. Those are the 4 prerequisites for us to enter the knowledge society that we are dreaming of. And together we can do that. Not alone, in complementarity with other agencies and organizations and companies, bringing in civil society and private sector in a competitive mode, creating new jobs and new tools for other sectors also to evolve. So I believe that the evolution that the platform we're trying to put in place will enable us really to enter the knowledge society in a safe manner while giving the boost to our economies and giving the right tools for other sectors to really be relevant. It certainly will not happen in the developing world without the information and communication technology. And we're talking about the Millennium Development Goals. They will never be met for health, education, or all the sectors, economy, without E-component of it, E-health, E-education, E-everything. And what is good for developing world is also good in the developed world as well. It is being used as such. I am very pleased to see here in this room the Italian the cyber Italian Society for Cyber not the Italian Society for Development of Internet, and the Cyber Italy, which is present here, including academia, which was one of the components we didn't have in ITU in 2010 when I presented my report at the Plenipotentiary Conference as my first term. I recommended to membership that there was something missing in ITU. We have a broad membership with private sector and member states, but we didn't have academia. And it's one very important component that I recommended, and we opened that membership, special membership for academia. And it closes the loop. You know, the link, the why the US has succeeded in the ICT field, because they have been able to make the bridge between industry and government, but also industry and academia working together. And we needed that, one feeding in another. And academia is using our standards when they are studying, but they don't feed back into it to improve it. So our membership was very quick in understanding and agreeing in that. And I'm pleased to see also academia here. And last night at the dinner, there were a number of universities that I met, and I hope to continue to create the synergies with them. I know the London School of Economics is present here. That's going to is feeding to the work we've done, and especially someone who has known the work of ITU for many years. And that will enrich the work we do. And giving and why we are meeting here in the Foreign Affairs Office, we are meeting here because the whole foreign policy could help in accessing that at international level, so that we can be economies of scales. And it will have an impact on the global economy and the national economy. Foreign policy drives the economic policy as well, and drives growth. And we are very happy to have that. When I joined ITU, we were a specialized agency. I was first Secretary General to start briefing the missions in Geneva. I'm glad that the Italian mission in Geneva is here, and they've been very active participants in the work of the Union, and been a very active member of the ITU Council. Italy has been always active. I think actually is only beaten by Belgium, who has survived almost 2 years without a government and still be very active. Italy does not have is still looking for a prime minister and a pope now. And I hope, since I was joking last night, since I survived the wicket, I think you can elect me as a new pope here in this conclave here. I hope it's just a joke. But I'm really very proud of the very strong relationship we've had over the years in terms of the intellectual contribution that Italy has had, and grasping the importance of entering into agreement that will help bring the benefits to ICT to the whole world is something that I think is obvious to all of us. But I like the idea of having intellectual debates frictions of brains, not frictions of people on this, so that we can come to the right conclusion. So thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity, and I really very much grateful, and especially mindful of the very high-level presence here of the people present here. It is simply, I'm very much humbled by the presence of everybody here. Thank you very much again.